At the high school, under a specific staircase, our protagonist, Arahabaki Yasuke, is hiding with his friends as they peer through the cracks of the staircases, trying to get a glimpse of what color the girls are wearing. Suddenly, two girls go up the staircase as Yasuke says that the colors are light blue and pink, surprised that it's just like his friend Nada had predicted again. Yasuke asks in surprise if Nada is a god, when all of a sudden a girl who is near the staircase wonders where Yasuke had run off to. The girl then says that she should head back first. At that moment, Nada gives another prediction as Yasuke's other friend starts smiling, saying that another girl is coming. Yasuke tries to peer through the crack to see who the girl is, and when he sees her, he is surprised as he hurriedly places his hand on his friend's eyes, telling them to stop. Yasuke's friend starts asking why Yasuke is telling them to stop, and Yasuke shouts, saying that his prediction is that there is really no reason to look. The girl had just started coming up the staircase when Yasuke shouts that no matter what, they are just kids. Suddenly, from behind, Yasuke hears someone calling as the girl, whose name is Akari, Yasuke's childhood friend, asks him what he is saying while holding her skirt. Yasuke and the others seeing Akari's are shocked. Later, in a Japanese shrine, Akari and Yasuke are walking as Yasuke says to Akari that she is being annoying, as he has seen enough of Akari's since they were little. Akari retorts back to Yasuke, saying that he has never seen her. Yasuke then asks Akari why she is following him back to the shrine, and Akari replies that it is because Sister Miyano had told her to come there. Yasuke is a little frustrated with Akari, as he had actually prevented the two guys with him from seeing Akari's, and he is feeling angry that Akari is not realizing that even a little bit. And inside the shrine, they see on the board that it is written that Miyano, who is Yasuke's sister, who is also the shrine maiden, will not be coming home for that night, and had told Yasuke to ask Akari to cook for him, and that he must get down on his knees and beg his big sister, that is Akari. Yasuke reads the board as he looks down, while Akari is staring at him, and Yasuke, feeling the stare, turns his head around. He says that there is a convenience store and a family restaurant in the world, and Akari interrupts him, asking if he has any money. And as Yasuke doesn't, he is trembling as he falls on his knees and bows his head as he begs Akari, saying that he is sorry and asks her to take good care of him tonight. Akari smiles as she agrees to Yasuke, who is staring wide-eyed towards her, as she asks Yasuke what he would like to eat. But Yasuke is simply staring at her. As he realizes that Akari's are white, Akari then stands up, saying that she will go to buy the ingredients, and Yasuke, who is thinking in his head that Akari has grown a lot, stands up, as something dawns on him, as he thinks that he and Akari are just the two of them who will be staying in the shrine that night, as he realizes that it means that his chance has finally arrived to end his 10 long years of unrequited love. He then thinks that he probably won't be rejected, as he thinks if he should tell Akari, or he shouldn't, and is wondering if he will finally tell Akari that he likes her today. At that moment, the paper on the board suddenly peels off as another writing appears underneath it, which was also written by Miyano, saying that in addition to asking Akari, he should get rid of the weeds in front of the main temple, and there is also a threat, but it does not say what would happen to Yasuke. But there is a blood splash on the paper, and Yasuke is sweating in nervousness. After that, Yasuke takes the tools to get rid of the weeds, but is welcomed by a shocking scene as he sees that all the weeds are overgrown, as he shouts to the sky, saying when was the last time Miyano had performed any rituals there. Yasuke is angry with his sister Miyano as he is cutting the weeds, but then he realizes that he should think over the confession and wonders how he would even start the conversation. Yasuke is very nervous, and in his nervousness, he swipes away the blade, and accidentally the blade slips from his hands as it goes through the paper door and strikes the mirror placed on the shrine, breaking it in two. Yasuke hurriedly enters the room as he is sweating, thinking that he will be by his sister Miyano, when suddenly a black gaseous thing starts emerging from the broken mirror. The black mist starts swirling around Yasuke, surrounding him when he suddenly finds light glowing in his chest. When suddenly a ball of light starts escaping from his chest as it flies out. Yasuke is confused and shocked at what is happening, when suddenly the ball of light flies into the hands of someone. The person, who is a girl, places the ball of light on her chest, as it is absorbed into her chest. Yasuke stares at the girl standing in front of him, as he is confused and slowly falls into unconsciousness. After that, Yasuke is with Akari eating, as he says that everything is delicious. Akari says that it is okay and Yasuke does not have to praise her like that, and Yasuke says no, saying that it is the truth, and he is lucky to have a wife like Akari. Akari is shocked as Yasuke starts freaking out, saying that it is just a joke, as Akari embarrassedly turns her head around, saying that she knew. But then she turns around towards Yasuke, saying that she is so happy, as she goes to Yasuke. Yasuke utters Akari's name in an ambiguous tone as he moves forward to her too. Suddenly, their meet, but Yasuke is not Akari, but the girl who had appeared in front of him, as the girl says that she is glad that Yasuke came back to life. Yasuke is shocked to see the girl as he screams in fear. The girl starts stuttering as she says that she is sorry, and Yasuke is also scared as he is shouting and asking the girl who she is. The girl stutters as she says that she is a goddess. Yasuke is dumbfounded by the girl's confession as he asks again, and the girl replies again, saying that she is a goddess. Yasuke still does not believe what he is hearing as he asks again, as the girl starts tearing up, as her eyes become watery, and she is on the verge of crying. Black lines streak Yasuke's face as he hurriedly accepts that the girl is a goddess to calm her down from crying. Yasuke then blushes thinking that he is a goddess, and then suddenly Yasuke realizes that he is holding the goddess as he says that he should let go of her, as Yasuke pushes the goddess away. The goddess suddenly shouts no as the light connecting them starts flickering, as she jumps into Yasuke's embrace, hugging him tightly, saying that Yasuke cannot let her go. Yasuke is confused by what the goddess is doing, as the goddess says that Yasuke cannot leave her side, as just then Yasuke would have died, and it is her fault. She then introduces herself, saying that she is the one being worshipped at the Shinto shrine, Magatsu Hino Kami. She says that her name is Shiori Tsuhime. Magatsu Hino Kami is the god of misfortune in Shinto, a divine being which brings about sin, pollution, disaster, and evil. Shiori then says to Yasuke that since he has broken the divine mirror, calamity will befall him. Therefore his life will be temporarily in her hands, as she shows Yasuke the ball of light that had flown out of his body previously. Yasuke is shocked as he realizes that it is his life, but Shiori continues, saying that although feeding life force to joy may revive him, it is still dangerous, but as a punishment, Yasuke needs to accept and provide service to a goddess. Yasuke is confused about what service as Shiori says, that in other words to remove Yasuke's misfortune. She requests Yasuke to bring her happiness. At that moment, Akari is coming into the shrine, and she is lost in her thoughts, thinking about how she is feeling a little excited, and anyway one looked at it, it felt like she is a wife. Akari then reaches the shrine's door, as Yasuke realizes it, and is surprised, as he pushes Shiori away, shouting at her, saying that she should hide. But instead, they both fall down, with Yasuke on top of Shiori, as the doors slide open and Akari comes. Akari hurriedly closes the door, and Yasuke apologizes to Shiori, as he jumps up in nervousness, running behind Akari. Shiori shouts at Yasuke to not let go, but Yasuke had already jumped away. But the moment Yasuke separates from Shiori, he falls down on the floor, as he realizes that he is not able to move his body, and it seems like his consciousness is fading. Then Yasuke thinks about how Shiori had said to him that if he left her side he would die, and Yasuke finally realizes that it is serious and that he is going to die. While this is happening, Akari is standing outside the door, as she thinks that maybe it is just her imagination, as she opens the door again, just to be greeted by a shocking sight, as the shopping bag slips and falls from her hands, as she sees Shiori kissing Yasuke. Yasuke's eyes open as he gasps and asks Shiori in nervousness, and Shiori replies that yes, Yasuke had almost died. At that moment, Yasuke senses a terrifying energy from near him as he sees Akari standing there, and saying to him in a terrifying tone that Yasuke had waited until his sister wasn't there to sneak in a girl. Yasuke hurriedly tries to explain the situation, saying that it is not like that. Shiori suddenly butts in, saying that it is her who had brought Yasuke here, and Yasuke tries to stop Shiori, saying that he could explain. But Shiori continues, saying that the truth is that Yasuke and her had already become one, as Yasuke shouts at Shiori to not speak for a bit. Akari is angrily standing in front of Yasuke, as she clenches her fists and trembles, as she says that although she already knew that Yasuke was a perverted idiot, she had never thought that Yasuke would go this far. After that, Akari turns around and starts leaving, when Yasuke chases after her, but stops as he realizes that he cannot separate from Shiori, or he would die. He realizes that it is close, as he hugs Shiori and starts chasing behind Akari. Akari sees Yasuke hugging Shiori as she shouts at him, saying that Yasuke is the worst. After saying that to Yasuke, Akari starts tearing up as she goes away. Shiori all of a sudden asks Yasuke if he is feeling miserable, as Yasuke shouts at her, saying that of course he is feeling miserable. Tears well up in Shiori's eyes as she apologizes to Yasuke. Yasuke tries to stop her, saying that it is all his fault. Black mist starts coming out of Shiori as she says that she is about to awaken, when all of a sudden, the mist gathers in the sky as a brilliant light emerges and Shiori starts crying. It starts thundering and raining as Yasuke and Shiori get drenched, when a huge tree nearly falls on them as Yasuke hurriedly jumps away. Yasuke is confused as he asks what happened all of a sudden, as Shiori apologizes saying that it is her fault, as she is a goddess of plague. Yasuke is confused as Shiori explains that she is attracting all of the calamity in the world, as she is that type of a goddess, and says that if her feelings stayed that way, it would be very hard to predict what is going to happen next. Another lightning strikes near Yasuke, as he thinks that in other words, whether he stays together with Shiori or he separates, he would surely die. At that moment, Yasuke suddenly realizes that Akari had gone away, as he thinks how Akari is afraid of thunder, and starts running searching for Akari. After going a little farther, he sees Akari who is crouching and shivering. He calls her from behind as Akari, seeing Yasuke, jumps up into his embrace as he asks her if she is okay. Akari suddenly sees something, and it is Shiori, as she apologizes and goes away from Yasuke. Akari is trembling as she says that she is fine and that, instead of her, Yasuke should take good care of her girlfriend. Yasuke becomes flustered as he says that it is not like that and shouts at Akari that the person he likes is, and at that moment his voice gets cut off by a huge thunder. Akari is frightened from the thunder as she faints, and Yasuke hurriedly catches her in his arms. Shiori is also crying as she says that she is soaring, as she had brought misfortune to Akari as well. Yasuke hurriedly tries to console her, saying that it is fine. On his one side, there is an unconscious Akari, and on the other side is the sobbing Shiori. Yasuke shouts in his mind at what kind of situation he is in. He thinks that he has to figure something out and put an end to it. At that moment, Shiori, who is sobbing, says that she is always like this, causing problems for everyone. That is why she was sealed away in the divine mirror. At that moment, there is another big thunder strike as Yasuke gets scared, as he thinks in nervousness that if he does not do something quickly, they will die, and that he needs to do something to comfort a girl. Then he realizes that Shiori is a goddess, and he needs to make her feel better. Akari is also waking up at that moment, when Yasuke remembers how Shiori had asked him to bring her happiness. Yasuke says to Shiori that she should listen to him, as he shouts at her saying that he will bring her happiness. Yasuke realizes that he has no choice but to quickly put an end to the curse. He then says to Shiori that he is a man, and he must take responsibility for his actions, and asks Shiori to watch him as he gives it his best. Shiori then looks towards Yasuke as she asks Yasuke in a hopeful tone if Yasuke is saying that he will accept her. Yasuke agrees, saying to Shiori that with that, she should stop crying as Sayori wipes her tears away, and she smiles at Yasuke saying yes. Yasuke is thinking that he has saved her, but is completely unaware that he has said something that he probably shouldn't have. A car comes speeding down the road as it stops in front of the shrine. From the car, a young beautiful woman steps out. In the now nearly destroyed shrine, Yasuke is sleeping as he thinks that he does not feel good, as he feels that he is stuck between two soft objects and something smells sweet. When Yasuke opens his eyes, he realizes that his face is stuck between the of a girl, and he blushes thinking that it is like that. The girl's name is Sayori Tsuhime. She is the goddess of calamity, and his name is Arahabaki Yasuke. He is 15 years old. Earlier, he accidentally broke the shrine's sealed sacred mirror. Right now, with Sayori having been released from the mirror she was attached to, he is cursed to serve Sayori and to bring her happiness. This is the punishment he must endure, and if he is separated from her, he will die. If he dies, he must receive a kiss in order to be revived. It's not delicious, but a horrific curse. Yasuke realizes that he is in an awkward kind of position, but thinks that if he gets up now, it would be a waste. All of a sudden, Yasuke hears a sipping sound. He stays still for a moment, starting to blush when behind him, his sister Miyano says that she is home. Yasuke starts getting up in awkwardness as Miyano tells him not to mind her. As a nervous Yasuke stares at Miyano, who then says that she already knows what had happened. Yasuke is surprised as he tries to explain that Sayori is not that type of girl. Sayori slowly wakes up and greets them, "Good morning." Seeing Sayori, Miyano slowly bows to her, saying that it's nice to meet the Magatsu Hino Kami, and introduces herself as the priestess Miyano of the shrine. Yasuke looks in surprise at Miyano as he asks in confusion how she knows. Miyano shows him the broken mirror, pointing towards the destruction of the shrine. Yasuke hurriedly kneels on the ground, apologizing, as Miyano says to him that they can decide what to do, and what Yasuke's punishment will be a little later. As she says that it looks a little troubling, Yasuke says that it is right and explains that if he separates from Sayori, he will die immediately. Miyano says to Yasuke that he should not worry about it, as they can take care of that right now. Yasuke becomes happy and asks Miyano if she is serious. Miyano takes out her phone and dials a number calling. When the call is answered, she introduces herself and asks if the principal could assist her with something as they talk. After Miyano disconnects the call, she looks at Yasuke, asking him what he is waiting for, and says that he should hurry up and get ready. Miyano then addresses Sayori as goddess and asks her to accept it as she hands Sayori a set of clothes. Miyano then muses about Sayori's name, thinking how her name, Sayori Tsuhime, sounds like Orihime, so she says to Sayori that from then on, they will call her just Orihime. The next day at school, in class 1A, Akari enters as she sighs and is feeling down, thinking that yesterday she just went home without knowing the full details. But after that it would have been just the two of them together, Yasuke and Orihime. Akari is thinking this while she imagines Yasuke smirking with an evil smile, saying that the person disturbing them was gone, and she thinks in frustration that she cannot take it anymore as she punches the wall of the class, leaving a deep hole in it. She then walks towards her desk as she thinks about why she is so bothered by this, and what Yasuke has to do with her. But in her mind, then she remembers how Yasuke had shouted about the person he liked, but was not able to finish the sentence. After that, she sighs again in frustration. While Akari is feeling down, two students are staring at her, and these two are none other than the friends of Yasuke. The slim and handsome one is called Nada Ayuchi, and the fat one is Matsubara Danzu. Matsubara is gritting his teeth as he curses Yasuke, saying that they had almost gotten to see Akari's and angrily asks if just because Akari is Yasuke's childhood friend, he is going to keep her for himself. At that moment, an old man who is the teacher of the class enters as he says to the students to return to their seats. Matsubara is not listening to the teacher, grumbling and saying that Yasuke lives with his hot sister, and that Yasuke is in an envious environment already. Nada, while looking towards the gate, calls Matsubara as he says that there is even more. All the students of the class, including Akari, turn their heads towards the teacher as they look in shock. They are looking at Yasuke, who is standing nervously with Orihime hugging him tightly. Matsubara looks at the scene in disbelief as the teacher explains that there was a sudden transfer. As he tries to introduce Orihime, but forgets her name, so Orihime says that her name is Setsu Orihime. All the students are looking at the scene with disbelief. So is Akari. And she thinks about Orihime being a transfer student. At that moment, Akari's and Yasuke's gaze connect, and Yasuke gasps, as Akari hurriedly turns her head away, making Yasuke flinch, thinking that Akari hates him. Yasuke's face turns black as he hears an angry voice calling his name when all of a sudden, a crying Matsubara comes and holds Yasuke by his collar, shaking him and shouts at him, asking Yasuke what is going on and what is with a hand holding, and what is Yasuke's engagement with such a cute girl like Orihime. Yasuke tries to explain himself when all of a sudden, the door of the class opens with a bang as someone shouts that she will explain everything. It is none other than Yasuke's sister Miyano, as she enters the class and apologizes, saying that it all had happened so suddenly, and that, to be honest, there was a special reason Yasuke and Orihime were together. She then says that Orihime is one of their relatives and had poor health since she was young, and that Orihime has been living in the countryside until now. While she is permitted to attend this school, her symptoms may be triggered without warning, and not to mention the fact that Orihime has a fear of strangers, so if she is not with someone she knows well, she cannot go outside. Miyano says this while she is sobbing, then says that therefore Orihime has decided to follow Yasuke around everywhere. She requests everyone to be nice and accept Orihime. After that, all the students in the class start cheering. In the hallway, Yasuke is shouting at Miyano, asking if this was what she meant by taking care of things. Miyano then says that it is impossible to prevent outsiders from entering the school, to which Yasuke shouts and says that that is not it, and he is talking about removing the curse. Miyano starts leaving as she says that God works in mysterious ways and Yasuke does not have the ability to change it, so he should accept his punishment. Yasuke then holds his head as he shouts at Miyano, asking if she is kidding him, as this kind of situation is going to interfere with his whole life, as he thinks that it will be especially the case under everyone's watchful eyes. All of a sudden, Orihime beside him starts tearing up as she asks Yasuke if she is a hindrance to him. Yasuke hurriedly tries to console Orihime, saying that it is not true, and that just like he has told her, he will take responsibility so Orihime should not have to worry about anything and just stay close to him. At that moment, somebody calls Yasuke's name from behind as he trembles in fear when he looks back. It is Akari. He tries to explain, but Akari cuts him off, saying that she did not understand the situation, yet she had said such horrible things to him yesterday. Yasuke is confused as he says that he found out about it just now. Akari then turns towards Orihime as she introduces herself, saying that her name is Akari, and that she is going to take good care of her and asks her to be friends. Orihime is surprised when Akari asked her to be friends as she starts tearing up again and says that this is the first time someone has ever said that to her. At that moment, Matsubara comes shouting, saying that there is no way they could forget about him as he is the most trustworthy guy in school. So Yasuke hurriedly starts pushing Akari and Orihime, saying that they should head back to the class. Akari is also doubtful as she thinks that she understands why they are together. But it seems like Yasuke and Orihime do not share an ordinary relationship between relatives, as she remembers the time Yasuke had said to Orihime that he would bring her happiness. In the classroom, the teacher says that he is done with the lessons as he asks if anyone has any questions. A student raises his hand as he points towards Yasuke and asks if he could punch Yasuke. Yasuke is being surrounded by all the boys in the class who are in a serious mood as Yasuke shouts to them, saying that they should just calm down and accept it. But instead of that, the boys in the class start charging Yasuke to beat him up, shouting for Yasuke to die. Yasuke escapes out of the classroom as all the boys get stuck in the doorway, trying to get to him. Yasuke continues running when Orihime asks him where they are going, as Yasuke says that they cannot stay in the classroom. Yasuke is wondering where they could buy time during recess as an idea comes to him as he drags Orihime and continues running. Yasuke is wondering if it is because of his nerves that he suddenly starts feeling like he has to urinate as he starts racing towards the restroom. Inside the restroom, all the boys are looking awkwardly at Yasuke. Orihime asks him what kind of room it is. Yasuke realizes his mistake, thinking that it is not good as he picks up Orihime and starts running away again. Yasuke thinks that it is all over as he realizes how easy it was at home when he went to urinate as Orihime just held him from behind and stared out the door. But at school, the restrooms for boys and girls are separated. Yasuke's stomach starts hurting as he thinks about what he should do, when in his sight comes the handicapped restroom, as he realizes that in the handicapped restroom, 2 people could go in there together. Yasuke enters the handicapped restroom as he sits down on the toilet. But after a moment of awkward silence, he realizes that it is even worse. Yasuke is at his limit as he searches for a restroom. At a restroom, Yasuke comes out of it, saying that he has finally made it, and is glad that no one is there. He then says to Orihime that he is sorry for the wait as he turns and looks at Orihime, who has fainted, and is on the ground as Yasuke gets shocked as he carries her and starts running, thinking how it is going to be hard to have a normal life. Yasuke suddenly meets Akari as Akari asks Yasuke what he is doing as the next period is P, and asks him where he is running off to. She then suddenly sees Orihime as she is surprised and asks Yasuke what is wrong with her. Yasuke makes up a lie, saying that it is her sudden illness, and that they need to get Orihime to the infirmary. In the infirmary, Yasuke lays Orihime on the bed, as Akari informs him that the nurse has left. There is awkward silence between them as Akari says to Yasuke that she is here so it is fine and Yasuke can go back. Yasuke becomes flustered as he says that Akari should go to class. Akari scolds Yasuke, saying that a guy should not wait beside a sleeping girl, and that when Orihime wakes up, she will call for Yasuke. Yasuke denies Akari as he thinks how if she lets go of Orihime's hand, he will be punished with death, but he cannot really say something like that to Akari. Akari thinks for a moment as she hurriedly turns around, saying that she was intruding on Yasuke and Orihime, and Yasuke shouts, saying that it is not like that. Yasuke suddenly gets an idea as she tells Yasuke that it is just like his sister had said in the class, and he cannot leave Orihime alone because she is afraid of strangers. Akari turns around as she looks down and says to Yasuke that she has never heard about a relative of Yasuke's like her before. Yasuke thinks that it is because he does not really have one, and Akari continues, saying that if it is about Yasuke, she really wants to know everything as they have always been together ever since they were little, and it feels to her like they are brother and sister. This sentence hurts Yasuke, as he wonders if Akari does not see him as a love interest. But Akari suddenly says that it is not like that. Yasuke confusedly asks Akari, but she says that it is nothing, and that she will take her leave. Yasuke tells Akari to wait as he hurriedly grabs her hand. Akari turns around as she asks him what it is. Yasuke blushes as he starts thinking how they are not like a big sister and her little brother as he tries to say something. But while saying this suddenly, Yasuke's hand slips out of Orihime's hand as he starts falling, thinking that he is going to die again. Yasuke falls towards Akari as all of a sudden, their connect. There is a brief moment of confusion between them, after which Akari gets deeply embarrassed as she screams and slaps Yasuke. The sound wakes up Orihime as she gets up, looking around where she is and calling for Yasuke when she gets shocked to see Yasuke on the floor. Akari, who had run away from the infirmary, is wondering why and what had just happened. In the infirmary, Yasuke slowly opens his eyes as he sees Orihime kissing him, as Orihime says that she is glad that she made it in time. Yasuke gets up as Orihime continues and says that if she had taken any longer, it would be impossible to revive Yasuke. Yasuke turns his head away as he blushes, thinking that it is the third time Orihime had kissed him. And that is right. It is only recently that Yasuke had started worrying about all of this, as he had already kissed Orihime 3 times. Yasuke then asks Orihime where Akari was when all of a sudden, he realizes that Matsubara had pasted his face on the window and was peering inside. Yasuke and Orihime try to run away as the window cracks and Matsubara jumps in from the window as Nada enters through the door. Matsubara is crying, saying to Yasuke in anger that he is a traitor, and that he had always thought that Yasuke was a simple and pure innocent boy, but he was a fiend. Yasuke tries to explain to Matsubara that it is a matter of life and death and asks Matsubara to listen to him for a minute. He then turns towards Nada, asking if Nada will listen, but Nada simply takes out his phone as he shows Yasuke a photo of him and Orihime and gives Yasuke a thumbs up. Yasuke shouts angrily at Nada, asking him what is with the higher picture quality when Matsubara grabs Yasuke's head from behind as sounds of beating come from the infirmary. Later in the school, Yasuke is looking at a mirror with his face swelled up as he is cursing Matsubara. Yasuke then wonders if being beaten up is also part of the curse, as he thinks that he should do something quickly. Yasuke then sees a hand mark on his face and wonders when he was slapped when Orihime apologizes to him as tears well up in her eyes as she says that it is all because she had passed out. Yasuke denies her, saying that he was the one who had let go of Orihime's hand, so Orihime should take her tears back. But Orihime does not calm down as all of a sudden, the tap comes out of the wall as Orihime starts crying, saying that she is sorry as the bathroom gets flooded with water from the broken tap, while drenching Yasuke and Orihime. As Yasuke thinks what else is going to happen, at the shrine, Yasuke is sleeping as he feels uncomfortable and wonders what it is. All of a sudden, he wakes up in surprise as he realizes the feeling, as it's the same feeling he had the morning before. Yasuke feels dread as he sleeps with his sister Miyano, his face buried in her. For desperate measure, his hand is tied with Orihime's hand, and there is a partition between them. Yasuke then remembers last night as he had asked Miyano what she is doing in his room, and Miyano replies that she is lonely sleeping by herself, feeling so lonesome. Then all of a sudden, Miyano's demeanor changes as she takes a terrifying tone and tells Yasuke that there is also the thing that if Yasuke does something bad to the goddess, being sent to the river Styx would be the least of his worries. Yasuke hastily tries to calm her down, as well as saying that he would not do something as such, when at that moment Orihime wakes up, rubbing her eyes as she cutely looks at Yasuke, which makes him blush. Yasuke thinks about how he would never do something with Orihime. Yes, to be honest, he only has eyes for Akari. And speaking of Akari, ever since he returned from the infirmary, Akari has been avoiding him on purpose. Yasuke then gets scared as he thinks that Akari has seen Orihime kissing him again. The building in front of the shrine is a sushi restaurant, which is called Inamori Sushi, owned by Akari's family. An alarm clock is ringing in a room. Akari shuts it down. Akari's face suddenly turns red as she thinks about the day before when Yasuke had kissed her. And because of that incident, she was not able to sleep at all. After that, Akari starts getting ready for school, as she wonders about what Yasuke was thinking when he did that. And she groans, thinking that she would not be able to face him at all. Akari opens the door, as she grumbles that she does not feel like going to school. But she is surprised to see Yasuke and Orihime standing in front of the door, as Yasuke greets her good morning. Akari is trembling as her face turns fully red, and she shouts no to Yasuke, and says that he is a kissing fiend as she runs away. Yasuke is dejected as he thinks that there is no doubt in it anymore, and Akari has seen them during the revival ritual, and he wonders what he should do. At school, Yasuke is feeling gloomy as Orihime suddenly calls Yasuke, pointing to someone and asking if that is one of his friends. Yasuke sees the person and realizes that it is his friend Matsubara, and thinks that Matsubara has seen them there too. And he wonders if, aside from Alex, Matsubara is going to start something. He calls Matsubara from behind, and when Matsubara turns towards Yasuke, Yasuke is shocked as he sees Matsubara's face has sunken in. Matsubara then mutters that their Yasuke has passed him, and his youthful days have ended, and Yasuke asks in disbelief if in Matsubara's mind he is that far beneath him. Yasuke then thinks if Matsubara has finally calmed down, then he discards it, thinking that the matter with Akari is of much greater concern, but from the looks of things, it does not seem like Akari would listen to him. Yasuke then suddenly gets an idea as he turns towards Orihime and asks her if she could talk to Akari for him, and tells her that she should tell Akari that the kiss was a misunderstanding. Orihime is confused as she asks Yasuke what was a kiss. Yasuke is dumbfounded as he stutters and explains that it was the reviving with the mouth thing. Orihime is still confused as she asks if there was some sort of misunderstanding. Yasuke finally realizes that to Orihime, her kiss was merely a revival technique as he falls down in disappointment, thinking that Orihime would of course not think anything about it. Yasuke then calms himself down, thinking that it should be fine after all, Orihime is a goddess. He then turns towards Orihime as he requests her to let Akari know that there was nothing going on between him and her. Orihime is simply staring at him as Yasuke becomes flustered and asks if there is really nothing, as he suddenly joins his hands and begs her to do it. Orihime's face turns determined as she says that it is a request, and she understands it. In class, Akari is blushing as she thinks how she had run away without a second thought. At that moment, Orihime calls Akari from behind, and Akari gets surprised. Akari then goes towards Orihime as she blocks Yasuke's face with a book, dumbfounding him, as he asks Orihime what it is. But Orihime suddenly shouts that it is about the kiss with Yasuke. She shouts it with such a loud voice that the whole class hears it. Akari becomes too embarrassed that she runs away from the classroom, shouting no. Orihime starts tearing up as she turns around and asks Yasuke if Akari hates her. Yasuke tells Orihime that it is not like that. Akari, on the other hand, is hiding behind a few lockers as she was, flustered, and wonders how Orihime knew about the kiss between her and Yasuke. She then wonders if Orihime had seen her kiss with Yasuke and becomes flustered, saying that she is too embarrassed to face them. At that moment, Orihime comes from behind as she sees Akari hiding behind the lockers and calls for her. Akari, instead of answering the call, runs away. Orihime is shocked, feeling guilty. Yasuke grumbles, saying that Akari is too fast. Orihime says that if they do not catch her, but Yasuke interjects, saying that it would be impossible in a three-legged race like theirs. But Orihime says no to Yasuke, saying that she will catch her and Yasuke will see that, as she becomes determined. She then starts dragging Yasuke as she jumps through the corridors, chasing behind Akari. Akari is running away, thinking that it is so humiliating, but she suddenly gets shocked as she sees Orihime chasing behind her and calling for her. Black lines streak Akari's face as she hits Yasuke on the head and scolds him, asking why he is letting Orihime do the running. Yasuke is confused as he asks why him, as Akari continues scolding him, asking what if Orihime had passed out again. Yasuke suddenly gets into Akari's face as he shouts at her, saying that it is because Akari is running away. Akari pushes Yasuke away from her face as she tells him to get lost and calls him a sex maniac. Yasuke is in confusion and disbelief that Akari called him a sex maniac when Orihime shouts at Akari saying that the kiss was a misunderstanding. Akari is surprised as Orihime explains that it is all Orihime's fault when Yasuke had passed out, and there was really nothing going on. Akari blushes as she now knows that Yasuke had passed out. Then the kiss was him falling on her, and it was an accident. But she is still not going to yield as she says to Yasuke that even so, what was done, and that Yasuke had to take responsibility. Yasuke turns his face away as he says that he has already accepted the responsibility, and that is why he is taking care of Orihime. Akari becomes confused as she asks Yasuke what he is talking about. Yasuke replies to her and asks her why she is asking as she had seen it already, as in the infirmary. He and Orihime had Akari becomes shocked and confused. She asks him about the moment when he passed out. Yasuke becomes nervous as he says that he remembered grabbing onto Akari, but that was all he remembered, and he guessed that he was too exhausted. But when Yasuke turns towards Akari, he is shocked as he sees an angry Akari holding onto a fire extinguisher. Akari shouts at Yasuke, saying he is an idiot, as she slams the fire extinguisher on his head. As the fire extinguisher blows and Yasuke is dragged across the floor by the fire extinguisher, and he gets slammed into the wall while being scolded by a teacher. Akari then is walking away, thinking that it is really unbelievable as she calls Yasuke an idiot. Back at the shrine, Yasuke has fully covered himself in a blanket with Orihime sitting beside him. Orihime tries to call for Yasuke, but Yasuke tells her to leave him alone for a bit. Orihime says to Yasuke that if she leaves him alone, he will die. Yasuke becomes silent for a moment, after which he says that in that case, maybe Orihime should go ahead and just kill him like a goddess of plague would. Orihime becomes upset as tears form at the corner of her eyes, but she hurriedly closes her eyes. Yasuke, under the blanket, is feeling depressed as he thinks that he is being hated and being truly despised, and something like being seen kissing another girl 3 times because of that. It is probably impossible for him to confess in this lifetime. Suddenly, Yasuke feels something as his eyes open up, and he carefully looks through the blanket, wondering what is going on as even though he is under the covers, he feels a sudden chill. When Yasuke comes out of the blanket, he sees that the black mist is covering his whole room as he shouts in shock, asking what is going on there. Yasuke looks around as he thinks that all the black smog only shows up when Orihime is crying. He hurriedly looks towards Orihime as he sees that she is sitting on the floor with her head down and eyes closed. Yasuke calls for Orihime when all of a sudden the room's door opens and Miyano appears through the door, saying in a terrifying tone and threatening him, saying that if something happened to the goddess, as Yasuke screams in fear. Miyano says that the smog is a physical manifestation of Orihime's current emotional state, and it is also the dark evil haze that brings about destruction, and is simply referred to as dark mist. And from the looks of it, Orihime must be extremely depressed. She then points the knife at Yasuke's throat as she asks him what did he do. Yasuke tries to explain as he says that he has been treating Orihime, but at that moment, Miyano starts dangling the knife over Yasuke's head, as she asks how he has been treating Orihime. Yasuke screams again, as he is fully terrified. Miyano says that Yasuke does not really understand his own position. Yasuke, who is scared, becomes confused as Miyano explains that right now Yasuke's heart and soul are joined with the goddess Orihime, and the most important thing is to treat Orihime as a priority, and in other words, Yasuke is forbidden from having an affair. Yasuke becomes flustered as he asks what affair Miyano is talking about. But Miyano ignores him as she thinks that it is strange as all of the dark mist is just collecting and nothing is happening. Both of them then look towards Orihime as they see that Orihime is sitting down while trembling and gritting her teeth with determination. Miyano becomes surprised as she says that Orihime is suppressing the dark mist. Orihime, who is on the verge of crying, says that she is not depressed. Yasuke says that Orihime is crying, and it is a little obvious, and if this keeps up, perhaps an entire city would be destroyed. He then asks Orihime why she is so depressed. Orihime says that it is because she cannot fulfill Yasuke's request, and not only did she not clear up the misunderstandings, but she also caused Akari to be miserable, and she says that she is a useless goddess. Yasuke holds Orihime's shoulders as he calls her name, but Orihime determinedly says that she is not crying as she closes her eyes, and thinks that if she cries it would be bad, as if she cries that disastrous things would start to happen. She then tries to wave the mist away, thinking that she is fine, and there is no problem. Yasuke, on the other hand, wonders if it is because of the request he had made to Orihime. He then knows that it is why Orihime is depressed, and yet she is still trying to suppress it. He then grits his teeth, thinking that it is all his fault. Yasuke then suddenly says to Orihime that she is right about the thing that she is useless. He says that he is really useless, and she is also a useless as the goddess, and that she might as well say that she cannot do anything, and that she might as well say that it is impossible, and in the end, she cannot do anything, and if she tries, she will just make things even worse. Listening to Yasuke's harsh words, Orihime starts tearing up as she starts trembling. She apologizes to Yasuke, but Yasuke instead scolds her, saying that whenever something proves useless after being useless, it becomes beyond useless, and that it is also useless to try because Orihime is fully useless. He then suddenly points at her and shouts at her in anger, saying that she is a super useless goddess. Orihime is shocked from Yasuke's words as dark mist starts gathering above the shrine. Tears start dripping from Orihime's eyes as there is a flash in the sky. Yasuke's face turns black as Miyano wears a helmet on her head. At that moment, something falls straight from the sky, breaking the roof of the house, shocking Yasuke. There is a big hole in the roof, and Miyano says that it is an asteroid, and it had struck right where Yasuke was sitting. Orihime becomes scared as she tries to explain. But instead, Yasuke shouts in excitement, saying that it is amazing as he says that it is an asteroid right in front of his very eyes, and that it is so rare that he is lucky. He then looks at Orihime, after which he turns towards Miyano and says that his wish could come true as he asks Miyano about it. But Miyano, instead of answering, makes a scary face as she asks Yasuke in a menacing tone about how many years should his allowance be reduced for the repair cost. Yasuke starts having a bad feeling about this. While Yasuke is talking to Miyano, Orihime realizes that Yasuke did it on purpose as Yasuke turns towards her and asks her if she feels better now. Orihime smiles and says yes. Akari, on the other hand, is cursing Yasuke, saying that he is stupid as she is walking back home as she thinks that Yasuke really did not remember her. And then after that he did it with Orihime, so she wonders if there is anything between both of them. Tears start rolling out of Akari's eyes as she thinks that she did not realize it. Akari is sitting on the banks of the river when all of a sudden someone calls her from behind as the person extends her handkerchief and asks Akari if something happened as she is showing such a gloomy expression. Akari asks who it is as the girl behind her says that Akari is making the expression as if she is being possessed by some kind of goddess of misfortune. Akari asks the girl who she is as the girl smiles and replies that it is a pleasure for her to meet Akari and that her name is Hinata. After that, they go to a cafe and Hinata introduces herself. Akari is surprised to find out that Hinata is Orihime's little sister. Akari then asks Hinata if she is here to see Orihime and says that Orihime lives very close by and she could take Hinata there if she wants. Hinata says no to Akari as she says that she needs a favor which she hopes Akari will help her with. Akari is confused as Hinata says that she wants Akari to force apart Orihime and Yasuke. Akari is surprised from this as Hinata continues asking Akari if she has not noticed something weird about a guy and a girl around that are always attached to one another. Akari says that she supposed so, but asks Hinata why she had chosen her. Another asks Akari if she is not Yasuke's girlfriend. Akari gets flustered as she stands up and slams the table, shouting that it is not true. Hinata then says if that is so, but asks if would it not be interesting to Akari as Akari becomes stunned. Hinata then starts pleading to Akari, saying that she can only rely on Akari as there are reasons that she cannot go to Yasuke's house for her sister's sake, and asks if Akari will help her no matter what. Akari asks Hinata about the reasons and Hinata dodges the question, saying that it is complicated family matters. Later, while going back, Akari is thinking that even if Hinata says to separate Yasuke and Orihime right now, she is still too embarrassed to look at Yasuke's face. Later, Akari is standing in front of the shrine as there is a "Do Not Enter" board on it. At that moment, Miyano comes in and she says that Akari is just in time. Akari asks Miyano what has happened and Miyano laughs, saying that an asteroid has hit the house. Akari becomes surprised as Miyano continues and says that she has a favor to ask her family, and even though the favor is going to trouble her father again. As expected, Akari is confused about what is being said. At Akari's house, there is deep silence as Yasuke is shooting nervous glances at Orihime, while on the opposite side is Akari's father and the owner of the Inamori sushi shop. whose name is Inamori Kunayako. Akari's father is deeply staring at Yasuke, who nervously says to him that he will be in his care. Akari's father does not say anything as he just hums. Yasuke is very nervous as he wonders why he has to stay at Akari's house, as it was only a hole in the house. Akari's father is silent as he is thinking inside about Yasuke and Oriheim. He wonders how he had heard that due to a childhood illness, Yasuke has always need to be nearby to Oriheim, and they had to be too closely attached. But he wonders if Yasuke and Oriheim are going out. He wants to ask them, but he can't and thinks that it is really bad. This is really bad for his plan, which was to let Yasuke be his son-in-law and be with Akari forever. Akari's father suddenly shouts Yasuke's name, but before he can continue, the door opens as Akari comes in. Yasuke greets Akari as Akari asks him if he will be staying here until the repairs are done at his place. Yasuke says yes and apologizes for it. Akari becomes a little embarrassed as she says that it is fine. She then looks at how Oriheim is hugging Yasuke's hand and thinks that even in the house Yasuke and Oriheim stick so close to each other. But if Oriheim is afraid of strangers and cannot let go of Yasuke, then all Akari has to do is become closer to Oriheim, and besides, Yasuke and Oriheim are far too close. Akari's father is thinking that because Akari does not want to do anything with an unknown guy, her childhood friend looks better for her in comparison, and thinks that even though he has kept his eyes on Yasuke, he is now with Oriheim. He then thinks that he has to force Yasuke and Oriheim apart. And although both the father and daughter are thinking for themselves, they have the same thought. And it is that no matter what, during Yasuke and Oriheim's stay there, they must be separated. While Yasuke is trembling in nervousness from both the father and daughter's stare. After that, Akari says to Oriheim that she has got some change of clothes from Miyano, and asks her to come to her room and change. Hearing this, Yasuke suddenly shouts, saying that there is no reason for that as their uniforms are great. Akari asks Yasuke what he is talking about as she says to Oriheim to follow her. She then stares at Yasuke, who is also following behind Oriheim, as she angrily asks him why he is following her too. Yasuke tries to explain, but Oriheim suddenly comes in asking if it is fine for Yasuke to come with them. Akari is shocked as she thinks that it is definitely a very serious condition. Akari whispers to Yasuke asking him if in the house he also does it this way, and Yasuke hurriedly explains, saying that at home his sister would help. Akari then thinks that it would be bad to force Yasuke and Oriheim apart, so she says to them that she understands. In Akari's room, Yasuke is gulping hard as Akari and Oriheim are changing clothes just beside him, while he is in the closet with its door nearly closed with a gap from which his hand is being held by Oriheim. Akari shouts angrily at Yasuke, saying that they are not done yet, and if he tries to peek, she will kill him. Oriheim then takes out her shirt from one side of the hand, as she hurriedly swaps her hands, holding Yasuke's hand with her other hand. She then turns towards Akari, saying that she is used to it, and Akari is in disbelief as Oriheim is used to doing something like that. After they changed, all of them are sitting in the room when all of a sudden there is a knock on the door. The door opens, and it is Akari's father, and he is holding a plate with cakes on it. He says that the cakes are from Miyano and asks them to enjoy it. He then calls Yasuke and asks him in a menacing tone if he can come to the store in a little while. Yasuke wonders in fear if Akari's father knows that he was in the room while they were changing. After that, they are enjoying the cake as Oriheim says that the cake is delicious and sweet. Akari asks in surprise if it is the first time Oriheim has had cake, and Oriheim says yes, to which Akari thinks that it is because Oriheim has been battling her illness. Oriheim thinks that she has never had something like that before. Akari then looks at the trembling spoon, which is held by Yasuke, who is trying to eat with his left hand, while he is right-handed as his right hand is being occupied by Oriheim. Seeing Yasuke struggling to eat, Oriheim apologizes as she says that she has been eating the whole time. She then picks up a piece as she offers it to Yasuke. Yasuke becomes flustered as he looks towards Akari and turns his head away, saying that Oriheim does not have to. The cake falls from the fork as Orihime starts trembling as she apologizes. Yasuke hurriedly says that he is sorry, and that he will eat it as he eats from the fork, saying that it is delicious. Akari is looking at Yasuke in a scary way as she asks Yasuke if he has forgotten that her dad had asked for him, and if he does not have to go now. Yasuke says yes as he goes below to the restaurant as he calls for Akari's father. When he enters, he sees that Akari's father is holding onto a sharp knife as Yasuke shrieks, saying that Akari's father is armed. Akari's father asks Yasuke if he wants to try it, to which Yasuke becomes confused. After that, Akari's father stares at the sushi on the board as he says that Yasuke has talent in making sushi. He then asks Yasuke how it is, and if he is happy. He starts stuffing Yasuke with sushi as he thinks that Yasuke should say it out loud that he is interested in inheriting the shop. At that moment, Akari comes as she says to her father that he has to go to the get-together with the neighbors to go drinking, and they have already called and asked him to hurry up. Akari's father looks at Yasuke trying to give an excuse, but Akari says that the neighbors have said to her that if her father does not hurry up, he would have to bring free sushi. Akari's father disappointedly goes for the drinking party. Akari then realizes that since her dad has left, that means that tonight, it will just be the three of them. But she tries to calm herself down, saying that she should not worry as there are 3 people, and it should not be a problem. After that, Akari, Orihime, and Yasuke are sitting at a table watching TV. Only Orihime is focused on the TV, whereas there is an awkward silence between Yasuke and Akari. The woman in the TV show is saying that she had thought that the guy was just a friend of hers, but he had suddenly kissed her. But she had also seen him kiss someone else, and he was the worst. Yasuke realizes that the atmosphere is getting tense. Akari tells him that the bathwater is warm. Yasuke says that he is fine and Akari can go in. Akari becomes happy as she says that in that case, they should go in, and calls Orihime. But Yasuke hurriedly interrupts, saying no, as Orihime probably does not need a bath as it has only been a day. Akari is confused as she asks Yasuke what he is talking about, and that if it was him, then it was fine. Suddenly Akari's eyes go wide as she realizes and asks Yasuke if they even bath together. Yasuke does not say anything, but keeps silent as Akari angrily slams the table, calling Orihime and shouting at her, saying that although she knows about Orihime's situation, Orihime is a girl, and no matter what, doing everything with a guy like Yasuke is a bit too much. She then clenches her fist as she asks if it is that hard for Orihime to trust her, and if she cannot replace Yasuke. She then says that she wants to know more about Orihime, and that she wants to become closer. Orihime starts tearing up as she begins crying. Yasuke gets terrified seeing that Orihime is crying, but Orihime suddenly thanks Akari, and Yasuke realizes that it is not tears of sadness, but tears of happiness. Orihime says that she has been all alone for a long time, so she never had the chance to experience something like this. Yasuke has accepted someone like her, who could only bring people trouble, and Akari is also treating her with kindness, so the person she is now is incredibly happy. Yasuke is touched with Orihime's words. When he hears Akari, and is surprised to see that Akari is crying, as Akari says that it has been very difficult for Orihime. She then holds Orihime's hand as she says that if there is anything she can do for her, then Lucius would just let her know. Orihime thanks Akari, while Yasuke is looking at both of them while they cry while holding hands. Akari then says that knowing now that Yasuke's presence is so important to Orihime, she is sorry, and that she will not try to separate the two of them anymore. Yasuke hurriedly asks Akari to listen, as he says that it is because he did not think Akari would believe him, that is why he could not tell her. He then is on the verge of telling her the truth when all of a sudden, the room's door opens as Hinata barges in, shouting at them to stop right there. Yasuke asks Hinata who she is, as Hinata says that she was sure that Yasuke would be at the shrine, as she has even asked Akari to help her. Akari is surprised to see Hinata there, as Hinata apologizes for interrupting. Orihime is also surprised to see Hinata. Hinata turns towards Orihime and calls her elder sister, as she says that it has been a while. Orihime asks Hinata what she is doing there, as she does not usually come out without a good reason. Hinata ignores Orihime as she turns towards Yasuke and says that it is nice to meet him. In the shrine at the parking lot, Hinata says to Yasuke that she has something that she needs to tell him. Yasuke and Orihime are standing together, while on the other end, Hinata is standing. Yasuke asks Orihime, saying that Hinata had called Orihime elder sister, and asks if she is also a goddess. Orihime agrees, saying that Hinata is a goddess. Hinata introduces herself, saying that she is the one who resides over 8 million gods, the ruler of the higher celestial plane of God's world, Amaterasu. Hinata then turns towards Orihime as she calls her, saying that she is here because she must seal Orihime once again. Like, share, and subscribe to find out in the next video. Hit the bell icon to get notified when I upload part 2. See you soon.